Have you ever believed that death comes suddenly, without warning? The truth is far more unsettling. The body rarely stops all at once. It begins sending quiet signals, sometimes months or even a year in advance. A belt that feels looser, a nap that grows longer, a forgotten word that lingers in the air. Families often dismiss these changes as normal aging, only to realize later, with painful clarity, that the signs had been there all along. Recognizing them early is not about fearing death. It is about preparing with love, offering dignity, and making every moment count. If you value insights like these, please subscribe to this channel. Your support encourages us to continue creating meaningful content that can guide you through life's most important moments. Now let me ask you, if you notice these subtle changes in someone you love, would you whine? A, dismiss them as ordinary aging? B, confront the possibility they mean something deeper and prepare with care? Comment below with A or B and share your thoughts. When the body begins its quiet descent, the first things you often notice are not grand or dramatic but simple changes in the physical form. One of the earliest and most telling is weight loss that happens without trying. At first, it may seem harmless: pants that suddenly feel loose, a favorite shirt hanging a little differently, a belt that needs a new notch. Families reassure themselves that it is nothing unusual, just part of growing older. But in truth, unintentional weight loss is rarely an ordinary sign of aging. It is the body's way of signaling that something deeper is taking place. Muscles are shrinking, the ability to absorb nutrients is faltering, and the systems that once provided strength and resilience are quietly slowing down. This loss of weight is not only about appearance, it represents a profound weakening of the foundation of life. Muscles that once carried the body with ease become frail, leaving a person more vulnerable to falls and injuries. The immune system, starved of the fuel it needs, loses its edge, leaving them exposed to illnesses that they once might have fought off with little effort. Appetite fades, not because food is less available, but because the body itself no longer asks for it. The taste of food becomes dull, chewing or swallowing becomes tiring, and the brain no longer sends the same hunger signals. What looks from the outside like picky eating is, on the inside, a reflection of a body that is beginning to let go of its need to sustain itself. Alongside this physical transformation comes another unmistakable shift: exhaustion. Fatigue at this stage is not like the tiredness you or I might feel after a long day. It is a heavy, unshakable weakness that rest cannot repair. The smallest tasks, walking across the living room, lifting a cup of tea, even holding a conversation, can drain every ounce of strength. A person who once moved through the day with routine independence now finds themselves resting after the simplest activity. Sleep stretches longer, naps grow deeper, and wakeful hours shrink. Families sometimes mistake this for laziness or depression, urging their loved one to push through, to stay active. But what is happening is not a lack of willpower. It is the body conserving what little energy remains, directing it away from motion and toward the preservation of life's most essential functions. For the person experiencing this decline, the changes can bring a mix of frustration and quiet sorrow. Independence is not lost all at once. It slips away in fragments. First, cooking becomes too tiring, then dressing requires help, then walking across the room demands rest. Each small surrender is a reminder of limits that were once unthinkable. For the family watching, this transformation is equally painful. They see the proud father who always worked with his hands, now unable to hold a tool. The grandmother who once bustled in the kitchen, now struggling to stand at the stove. These are not just physical losses. They are emotional ones, because they strike at the very identity of the person they love. And yet, within these moments lies an opportunity for deeper connection. When the body begins to slow, it creates space for families to step closer, to offer presence rather than pressure. Instead of urging more food, they can provide meals that are small, gentle, and comforting. Instead of demanding activity, they can sit together, talk quietly, or share in the simple act of resting. These adjustments do not reverse the decline, but they transform it from a lonely struggle into a shared journey. By accepting the limits of the body, families can shift their focus to what truly matters: comfort, companionship, and the grace of making every moment count. Physical decline may be the first visible sign of life's final chapter, but it is also a reminder. A reminder that strength is not only in muscles, but in the love that surrounds a person as those muscles weaken. A reminder that energy is not only in movement, but in the conversations, memories, and tenderness that remain. And most importantly, a reminder that though the body may falter, the opportunity to provide dignity and peace remains firmly in our hands. As the body weakens, the mind often begins to show its own quiet fractures. The changes are subtle at first: a forgotten word, a misplaced object, a question asked twice within the same hour. Families often laugh it off, calling it a senior moment, but over time the lapses become more frequent, more unsettling, and more difficult to ignore. What was once sharp, steady thought begins to blur at the edges. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly now leave the person confused, lost in the middle of a sentence, or uncertain about what was just said. These moments are not simply the natural forgetfulness of age. They are signals that the brain itself is receiving less oxygen, less blood flow, and less vitality. Confusion becomes a more constant companion. Someone who once navigated their home with ease may suddenly seem unsure of where they are. They may recognize faces but struggle to place names, or they may look at loved ones with a fleeting hesitation that pierces the heart of those watching. Decisions that once came easily now feel overwhelming. The ability to follow the thread of a story, to understand a set of instructions, or to manage small tasks slips further and further away. It is as though the person is drifting between two worlds, present in one moment, absent in the next, leaving their family caught between hope and grief. At the same time, emotional withdrawal becomes more pronounced. A once lively storyteller falls quiet at the dinner table. A grandmother who loved to share every detail of her day now sits silently, staring into the distance. A father who once offered advice and laughter now spends hours in wordless stillness. This retreat is not because they no longer care, but because the effort of engagement becomes too heavy. The mind can no longer process emotions, conversations, and noise the way it once did. What used to be simple human interaction now feels overwhelming, exhausting, and sometimes frightening. These changes can be especially painful for families because they strike at the essence of who a person is. To watch a loved one's personality fade, to see their once bright spirit dim, is to grieve a living loss. It feels as though the person is slipping away before death has even arrived. Family members often struggle with frustration or sadness, trying to call their loved one back into the world with questions, stories, or reminders. But the truth is, the person cannot return to who they once were, no matter how much they or anyone else might wish it. The decline is not a choice, but a natural outcome of the body's gradual slowing. And yet, even in the midst of this decline, there remains room for connection. When words falter, presence still speaks. A gentle touch on the hand, a calm voice reading aloud, a familiar song played softly in the background. These things bypass the barriers of memory and cognition, reaching directly into the heart. A confused mind may not recall names or places, but it can still feel love, comfort, and safety. For families, learning to meet their loved one where they are, rather than pulling them back to where they once were, is a gift both to the person in decline and to themselves. The decline of the mind and spirit reminds us that identity is more than memory, more than conversation, more than clarity. It is also found in the bonds we maintain, in the care we offer, and in the patience we show. Though the mind may wander and the personality may fade, love remains. And when families choose to embrace this stage, not with resistance, but with gentleness, they discover that even in silence, even in confusion, there are moments of grace, moments where the presence of love is enough. As the mind grows dimmer and social connections weaken, the body continues its quiet surrender in ways that can no longer be ignored. One of the clearest signs that life is approaching its final stage is the steady weakening of the immune system. A person who once recovered quickly from a cold now takes weeks to regain their strength. A small scratch that would have healed in days lingers, red and tender, sometimes refusing to close at all. What used to be minor illnesses now feel like heavy burdens, leaving the body more fragile with each passing infection. Pneumonia, urinary tract infections, and skin irritations begin to appear more frequently, and every new occurrence seems to take a deeper toll than the last. These changes are not random, nor are they merely the inconvenience of age. They are the body's way of showing that its defenses are failing. The immune system, once vigilant and capable of fighting invaders, begins to falter. Circulation slows, carrying fewer nutrients and less oxygen to the organs and tissues that desperately need them. Healing, which once felt like a natural certainty, becomes delayed, uncertain, and incomplete. Families may notice bruises that do not fade, sores that reopen, or gums that bleed easily. These are not isolated problems. They are part of a larger pattern that reveals a body no longer able to repair itself as it once did. For loved ones watching, this is often one of the most heartbreaking stages. It can feel like an endless cycle of doctor visits, antibiotics, and hospital stays. Families may cling to the hope that one more treatment will restore vitality, that another round of medicine will make everything normal again. But as time passes, it becomes painfully clear that the body is no longer responding in the way it once did. Even strong medications lose their effectiveness, and recovery times stretch longer and longer until it seems as though every illness is simply replaced by the next. This is the moment when families are faced with a difficult choice, whether to continue fighting with every medical tool available or to shift their focus toward comfort and dignity. Aggressive treatments may prolong life by days or weeks, but they often do so at the cost of peace, leaving the person exhausted, in pain, or confined to a hospital bed. Choosing comfort care is not about giving up. It is about recognizing that quality of life matters as much as, if not more than, the number of days left. It is about understanding that sometimes easing suffering is the most loving gift we can give. And yet, even in this stage, there is space for hope. Not the hope of reversing time, but the hope of presence, of gentleness, of meaning. Families can provide care that soothes rather than strains. Simple acts keeping the skin clean and moisturized, ensuring hydration, adjusting pillows, creating a calm environment, become powerful ways to preserve comfort. Paying attention to subtle changes, such as increased confusion or sudden fatigue, can reveal infections early, allowing for gentler interventions that focus on relief rather than cure. The weakening of the immune system is a reminder that the body is nearing the end of its long journey, but it also teaches us something deeper. It shows us that love is not only expressed in cures and solutions, but also in compassion and presence. When families stop measuring success by whether their loved one recovers from an illness and start measuring it by whether their loved one feels safe, comfortable, and cared for, they discover a new kind of strength. They realize that even as the body breaks down, there is still a profound opportunity to honor the life that remains. In these moments, when medicine reaches its limits, love steps in to fill the space, and that love can transform even the most fragile days into something sacred. As the immune system falters and the body's ability to fight and heal begins to fade, another unmistakable shift emerges, changes in breathing and circulation that signal the final stage of life is drawing near. These changes are often subtle at first, so easy to dismiss as a cold breeze in the room or a restless night of sleep. But over time, they grow more pronounced, revealing that the body is no longer able to sustain the rhythm of life as it once did. Breathing, something so natural and effortless for decades, becomes irregular. You may notice long pauses between breaths, shallow inhales, or sudden bursts of rapid breathing followed by silence. This pattern, known as Cheyne-Stokes respiration, is not a disease but rather the body's way of conserving energy, adjusting as the systems that once worked in harmony begin to shut down. Alongside these breathing changes comes the visible weakening of circulation. Hands that once felt warm now grow cool to the touch. Feet and toes take on a bluish or mottled hue, as if the life that once pulsed through them is retreating back to protect only the most essential organs. The skin grows pale, sometimes thin and fragile, reflecting the reduced flow of blood and oxygen. For families, these signs can be startling. To see a loved one's fingers cold in the middle of a warm day, or to hear their breathing catch and falter in the stillness of the night, stirs fear and helplessness. It is natural to want to intervene, to encourage deeper breaths, to rub warmth into their hands, to fight against what feels like a frightening decline. But these changes are not failures. They are not battles lost. They are the body's natural way of preparing for the end of its journey. The heart, which has beaten tirelessly for decades, now beats more slowly, sending its precious blood only where it is most needed. The lungs, which have carried every breath of laughter, every sigh of sorrow, now begin to slow their rhythm. What feels like fragility is, in truth, the body's final expression of wisdom, choosing peace over struggle, conservation over effort, surrender over resistance. For the person experiencing these shifts, discomfort is real but often different from what families imagine. Breathing may feel heavy, lying flat may cause unease, or speaking may leave them winded. But what they need most is not panic or intervention, it is comfort. Families can ease this stage by creating a calm environment, propping them up on pillows to make breathing easier, using a humidifier to soften the air, or offering small sips of water to relieve dryness. These simple acts do not reverse what is happening, but they restore dignity, showing that even in decline, love still has the power to soothe. And perhaps the greatest act of love in this stage is presence. To sit quietly by the bedside, to hold a hand that feels cold, to whisper words of reassurance, is to remind your loved one that they are not alone. Many people fear dying more for the loneliness it may bring than for the physical process itself. But when they sense that someone they love is near, the fear lessens and peace begins to take its place. The slowing breath, the cooling skin, the fading strength, all of these can be softened by the warmth of human connection. In the end, changes in breathing and circulation are not simply medical signs. They are profound reminders of life's fragility and beauty. They show us that the body, after years of carrying us through every joy and sorrow, deserves to rest. They invite us to stop clinging to the illusion of control and instead embrace the gift of presence. Death, when seen through this lens, is not an enemy to be fought, but a transition to be honored. And when families recognize this truth, they discover that even in the final hours, there can be tenderness, peace, and love so powerful that it transforms grief into reverence.